Okay. Okay, thank you, Nicole. Now, if all the little pictures on the side of everybody's screen gets in your way, if you click on the little bar on the left, at least on my screen, it's on the left, everyone will go away. And it just says who's talking. So, welcome to the District 9 Area 3 Parliamentarian Workshop. These are the topics I'm going to cover tonight. Who's Robert and why? What's a parliamentarian? Why? What are Robert's rules of orders? What are my responsibilities? The golden rules, I call them the golden rules, they call them something else. And what happens at a meeting, motions, small clubs, and more information. So we'll just take each little topic as it comes up, and I have to figure out here where to put my notes. Okay. Sorry. Who is Robert? Major Robert Henry Martin Robert. Moved to San Francisco in the mid to late 19th century and found it to be a chaotic place where meetings of any kind tended to be rowdy, with little consistency of procedure and with people of many nationalities and traditions thrown together. His interest in parliamentary procedure began in 1863 when he was chosen to preside over a church meeting, and although he accepted the task, like all of us good Zontans, he felt that he did not have the necessary knowledge for proper procedure. He published his first book in 1876. Robert's Rules is the most widely used manuals of parliamentary procedure in the United States. It governs the meetings of a diverse range of organizations, including church groups, county commissions, homeowners associations, nonprofit organizations, professional societies, school boards, school trades, and Zonta that have adopted as their parliamentary authority. Robert published 4 editions of his manual before his death in 1923, the last being the thoroughly revised and expanded 4th edition in May 1915. His family, if you can believe this, continues to update these rules after all this time. So what is a parliamentarian and why do we need one? A parliamentarian is a consultant who advises the president and other officers, committees, and members on matters of parliamentary procedure. Parliamentary procedure is the accepted rules and ethics and customs governing meetings of an assembly or organization such as Zonta. Its object is to allow orderly deliberation upon questions of interest to the organization and thus arrive at the will, which is the majority, of the assembly. Self-governing organizations follow parliamentary procedure to debate and reach group decisions, usually by a vote, with the least possible friction. The parliamentarian's role during a meeting is purely advisory and a consultative one, since parliamentary law gives to the chair alone, which for us is the president, the power to rule on questions of order and to answer parliamentary inquiries. During the meeting, the work of the parliamentarian should be limited to giving advice to the chair and, when requested, to other members. It is also the duty of the parliamentarian, as inconsequentially as possible, to call to the attention of the chair any error in the proceedings that reflect the rights of a member, any member. Rules of the road. If everyone in your group learns the basics of parliamentary procedure, you'll have a more productive meeting. More members will make and discuss motions, and more members will be willing to serve as officers and committee chairs. Wouldn't we all love that? And Henry Roberts said, no rules can take the place of tact and common sense on part of the chairman. So the basic principles of parliamentary procedure are: 1, to be fair; 2, efficient; 3, democratic; and 4, orderly. Robert's Rules of Order. What does that mean? What are they? How many times have you been to a meeting that didn't go well? We've all been there. Did it seem that the chair didn't keep order? Was there a feeling that someone was being railroaded? Did it take an interminable amount of time to settle the simplest things? What was wrong? Robert's Rules was wrong. Robert's Rules governs the meetings of a wide range of diverse organizations and establishes how effective meetings are run. Okay, what am I supposed to do and what are my duties? Parliamentarian's role is parliamentarian's role. I'm not going to read all these screens, but I have other things to say. An organization requires rules of operation. The most important should be the hardest to change. Typically, these include bylaws, rules of order, such as Robert's Rules, and standing rules. The bylaws and standing rules were specifically written for your club. Those rules take precedent in governance. All matters not specifically addressed in those documents, the rules of order specified in the bylaws, are parliamentary authority. And that means that your bylaws take precedent to everything. And if it's not in your bylaws, then Robert's Rules are the next order of the next level of order. The usually most common edition is Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, and every few years they revise them. A parliamentarian should spend time studying these rules. Zonta in the US only uses Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, and you want to make sure you're using the most current newly revised. Parliamentary procedures are a consistent set of rules that govern deliberative assemblies. The rules are intended to protect the individual, the minority, and the majority, the absentee, and the organization. Parliamentary procedures are based on the following principles of parliamentary law. Consideration of one subject at a time. Right of the minority to be heard. Right of the majority to rule. Governs the meetings on a wide range of diverse organizations and establishes how effective meetings are run. Members should understand the basic rules of parliamentary procedure in order to participate effectively in meetings. The parliamentarian is an expert in rules of order and the proper procedures for the conduct of meetings and deliberative assemblies. Parliamentarians assist the organizations in the drafting and interpretation of bylaws and rules of order and the planning and conduct of meeting. Know your club bylaws. I can't stress this more than anything else there is. They are the rules. Parliamentarians are often asked by organizations, how do we do this? How do we do that? What is a proper procedure to accomplish this objective? The parliamentarian will review the organization's governing documents and provide an opinion as to how to proceed with the rules. It's all based on your bylaws. And every club needs to have bylaws. So the parliamentarian should be seated next to the president so they can give advice in a I lost my frame. In a gentle manner. It's purely advisory. The president does not have to accept what the parliamentarian said, because the president of the Zonta clubs have primary authority. They give limited procedural advice to the president. And you want to be as quiet as possible when giving the advice, so you don't want to shout out, hey, this is wrong. You need to do it quietly and gently. Parliamentarian must remain impartial. And believe me, this is hard to do because we all have opinions on things and we all want to express our opinions on things. But as parliamentarian, you cannot do that. And boy, I have to sit on my hands so many times, but that's my job. Parliamentarian does not make motions, does not participate in debate or vote except by voting by ballot. They must have the knowledge of the organization bylaws, nomination and election procedures, because you are also not in charge, but you need to give guidance to your nomination and election process. You also want to help members learn. Most members don't know anything about parliamentary procedures, and they'll just speak up whenever they want and say whatever they want, and you can't let that go on to be an effective club meeting. And you need to develop your own knowledge of Robert's rules and parliamentary procedure. Very important. If a member feels they cannot properly forgo these rights, which means being impartial and you don't get to vote and you don't have to say anything, then you should not be a parliamentarian. And I can't stress this enough because it is a hard thing to do. Also, the parliamentarian is the president's appointment. The presidents appoint the parliamentarian based on her knowledge and skills. It's not an honor or a special appointment for a friend. The parliamentarian should be someone reliable and trusted to provide accurate advice for everyone on both sides of an issue. The president and parliamentarian should have a good working relationship. Before the meeting, the parliamentarian should review the agenda with the president to be familiar with the business and possible problems that may arise. Be familiar with your club bylaws and standing rules. Work with any committee members who assist in preparing reports for the meeting. And during the meeting, preparatory work helps and it reduces the necessary communication during the meeting. Be inconspicuous as possible, provide advice when requested, and communicate with the president tactfully and discreetly. Remain impartial and be prepared to cite references if needed. Be available after the meeting for further consult. Know the rules. I call these the golden rules. They may seem obvious, but it's surprising how many times we don't follow the golden rules. Only one subject at a time before a group. Negative motions are generally not permitted. Only one person may speak at any given time. All members have equal rights. Each item presented for consideration is entitled to full and free debate. The rights of the minority must be protected and the will of the majority must prevail. Members should understand the basic rules of parliamentary procedure in order to effectively participate in their meetings. Okay, oops. Did I miss a page? Sorry, I'm going back. No, I did that one. What happens in a meeting? I got a lot of questions about this. The parliamentarian should review the agenda with the club president prior to the publishing of the meeting agenda. You should look for items that may be a topic for discussion or even dissension, as we all know this happens. Work with the club president on what would be the best way to handle the topic. So first thing is the meeting comes to order. The president welcomes everyone and introduces any guests. You need to establish a quorum. You need to establish the presence of a quorum before proceeding. In the absence of a quorum, business requiring a vote must be postponed. If urgent action is required, the action must be ratified at the next business meeting at which the quorum is present. What is a quorum? Look at your club bylaws. They have to be in there to establish what a quorum is. So that's the first place to start. If any time during the meetings, and this is so very important, a member leaves and there's no longer a quorum, the meeting no longer has a quorum. You cannot vote on any items after that person leaves. The quorum must remain throughout the entire meeting. Approval of consent agenda. Well, what is that? I know a lot of you are going to say. It's a group of items that are routine, procedural, informational, and self-explanatory, non-controversial items typically found in the agenda, such as the agenda, the minutes, treasurer's report. These items are then presented to the board or the business meeting in a single motion and an up or down vote, allowing anyone to request that a specific item be removed from the agenda for individual attention. Other items, particularly those requiring strategic thought, decision-making action, are handled as usual, not in the consent agenda. If one member wants to have an item to be removed from the consent agenda, such as minutes, for further discussion, it can simply be done by a request. The remaining items are then approved in one motion, and the separate items are discussed and approved, in a motion. Your agenda under consent items. Yes, the agenda needs to be approved. If there's any items to be added to the agenda, it can be done now, but the agenda has to be approved. Minutes. The minutes should have been sent to all members prior to the meeting. It's important to recognize the minutes are proposed minutes, and they do not become official until all approved, perhaps with corrections by the members. Any corrections made to the draft minutes or the proposed minutes at the meeting are made in the text of the meeting being approved. So if we're approving minutes from January at our business meeting in February, and there's some corrections, they're corrected in the January minutes meeting, not in the February minutes meetings. The minutes for the meeting, such as February, are just noted that there were corrections made to the agenda, but they do not state what the corrections were made. They need to be reflected back on the January minutes or whatever the prior month's minutes were. Then after they're corrected, then they're approved. All the minutes have to be approved by a motion. And if you do them the consent agenda, you do it all in one fell swoop. If you do them individually, then you have to approve the minutes or as a separate line item. The treasurer's report is, I don't think I need to describe it. It's a report from your club treasurer on your activities. If your club does not use a consent agenda, you might consider it. It saves a lot of time. And if you do not have a consent agenda, each of these items must be approved individually. So you need to do the agenda and you have a first and a second and discussion and approval, minutes, first, second, and so on. So the consent agenda works much more smoothly and it makes your meetings a lot shorter. Then the next subject should be reports, then unfinished business, new business, announcements, and adjournments. And I didn't make this up. It all came from the club manual on the Zonta International website. And this is a standard agenda for almost all the meetings that I have done any research on. They all have the same format. The dreaded motion. Every meeting has them. And most organizations fumble over or how what to say. Have you ever heard, oh, I think we should do this or that, or so-and-so, everyone agree, good, let's do it. Or so moved, or I will. Well, those aren't motions, because what are they so willing, and what are they I moving? And what are they saying, let's just go and do this? It's not clear to everybody. Motions are formal proposals by a member that the group takes certain action. The most important are the main motions. And that's what I'm going to discuss right now. A main motion, which is brought before the club for its action, any particular subject. Main motions may not be when any, you may not make a main motion when any other motions are before the group. So you can only have one motion at a time. Strictly speaking, there should be no discussion on a matter before a motion regarding it has been made. And I know that we all do that. We all discuss something and we're talking about this and that. And then somebody says, well, I move. And that's kind of how we operate. But technically speaking, it should be I move, and then we all discuss it. So to move, you stand and you raise, or you don't stand, most of us, you raise your hand and the president acknowledges you. And you say, or stand up, I move, blah, 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 blah. I want to do this fundraiser on this date, and the prices are going to be this much, and we're going to make this much money. But you need to write your motion down, because the president's not going to remember everything that you said in that motion. So all motions have to be written down. And you can either have a piece of paper if you're meeting in person, where the person making the motion writes them out, or if you're meeting on Zoom, you can put them in chat, but they need to be written. And they need to be precise, not, well, I think we should do this, but I'm not really sure how we go about it. Anyone making a motion should know exactly what they're talking about when they're making the motion. Sorry. So when you're ready to make a motion, you stand up and say, I move that we approve this fundraiser as presented. Say you've been talking about it for weeks, and now you want to make the motion to go ahead with this fundraiser. Write it down. It needs a second, unless it is coming from a committee. If a motion is coming from your program committee or from your membership committee or another committee that your club has, the committee is the one that is making the motion. And there, in fact, it does not need a second. But during discussion in your board meeting, if somebody just stands up and says, I want to make a motion, I move that we move the meeting date from the 4th Wednesday to the 3rd Wednesday, it needs a second by somebody because it did not come from a committee. The president then, after receiving the motion that's been written down and receives a second, the president says, reads the motion, I move, da, 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 must be precise, should be written down. The chair states the motion. The motion is not legal or valid until the president restates the motion. And the president can say it's been moved and seconded, and then repeat the exact words that the person making the motion said. If the president is unsure if the motion is clear, then they should help clear up the presenter of the motion to make it more clear for everybody else to understand. The president does not have to say who made the motion or second the motion, but it must be noted in the minutes. So I suggest that all the club presidents, when they're repeating the motion, say it's been moved by Mary Smith and seconded by Judy Jones that da 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 da. The discussion happens after the motion has been stated by the president. I know most of us do it before and then the motion's made, but technically it's the other way around. So the president reads the motion and then asks for any discussion, any further discussion. And when there's nothing to be heard, the president reads the motion again for the second time and asks for the vote. All in favor say aye, all opposed no, motion carried, motion defeated. So during this debate, you may hear a member stand up and say, call for the question. I know we hear it often. Most members think this will end the discussion and allow for a vote. It does not. A motion can be made to end discussion by saying, I move the previous question, which means they want to go back to the original motion. This requires a second. It is not debatable. There's no discussion on, I move the previous question, and requires a 2/3 vote of the members present, not a majority of 2/3. So after, and move the previous discussion, or however the president's going to handle it. Any more discussion? The president reads the motion again. All in favor, yes or no? Motion carried, yes or no? I know it's a lot. Sorry, I got to take a drink of water. Can a motion be amended? Yes. Motions can be amended. If during the discussion about a motion becomes necessary to amend that's being discussed, there can be a second motion to amend it. That's called a subsidiary motion. It's the same process that we just went over, but instead of I move to say, but instead you say I move to amend the motion to. So you don't want to move it, you don't want to have the motion on this day, you want to have it on this day, or something along that line. But the amendment needs to be seconded, discussed, and voted on. And then the first motion is now amended, and the president reads the first motion with the amendment included. So instead of having an event on May 1st, now it's on May 31st. So the president would read, the motion, I move that we approve this whatever event for May 31st, where originally she said May 1st. Then it's treated as a regular motion. You have discussion and approval. It's important for the president to be very careful on amended motions, that the new language is really clear and precise for everybody. Is there a time limit? Well, could be. Do you have time limits set in your standing rules or bylaws? Most of us probably don't, but you want to use a reasonable time limit on discussions for motions. If it gets too long, someone could stand and say, I move the previous question. And again, it goes back to the previous motion. And that requires a second and approval to go back to the original motion. Stick to the subject. Don't wander off and say, well, maybe we can do this, or how about this? It has nothing to do with the motion that's been presented. If whoever's presenting the motion wasn't sure about all these things, then maybe the motion should not have been presented. Debate issues and not personalities. And this happens so many times. Well, I don't want Susie to do this because I don't like her. That's not the issue here. The issue is the motion and the issue, not a personality. And most important is the president and the parliamentarian do not vote. And this is where the hardest thing comes up. We and the president do not get to vote. Oh, let me go back one more. Sorry. Robert's Rules of Order provides for 4 general types of motions. Main motions, which are those that I have mainly discussed tonight. Subsidiary motions, incidental motions, and renewal motions. They're too lengthy to go over here, but I've put together a separate spreadsheet with these motion types. Robert's Rules of Orders explain them also. I also have other PDF pages that I'll send to anyone who wants them, and my email address will be on the last slide. It's complicated. And this covers most of us, small boards and small business meetings. Do we really need to follow the rules? Not necessarily. Members may raise their hand instead of standing. Motions do not need to be seconded, but should be. No limit on the number of times a member can speak. And I may not have mentioned this earlier. I think I skipped it over. That a person only can speak on a motion once until all members have had their voice on the motion, then they can speak again. So there's no interrupting. The first person says, I want to do this and this and this, and they wait till everybody else has their say, and then they can speak again. They don't interrupt and say, well, I don't agree. That's not, so one time is the number of times a person can speak. Informal discussion can happen without a motion. And this is only for small groups because this is the way most of us operate, is in small groups. So you can do it without a motion, but you can't do anything without a motion. All decisions have to have a motion seconded, voted on, and approved or disapproved. And in the small meetings, the president may participate in discussion, but she still cannot vote. There is no parliamentary police. If you don't follow the golden rules, no one is going to come and arrest you. You just need to do the best you can for an orderly and efficient meeting. I have here 3 different things for Robert's Rules. This is the latest Robert's Rules of Order. It's the 12th edition since whatever I said in the beginning, 18 something. It's, oh, I can't show you. Well, I see it's 714 pages. It's very thick, it's very detailed and very small print. There's an ebook also available, but they also give you sample rules and helpful explanations. But it's very tedious. There's this in brief, Robert's Rules of Orders in brief, which is only 215 pages. It's a little simpler and easier to understand, perfect for us small groups and small business meetings and small clubs, ebook, and they have FAQs in the back. And last, not forgotten, is Robert's Rules for Dummies. They're simple, easy to understand. There's an ebook available, and it's good for beginners. I'm doing pretty good on time. Thank you. And before I stop sharing the screen, everybody please note my email address. This is not the one that a lot of you know, but this is my email address I want to use for this is Darleen. And please make sure you spell my name correctly. I'm Darleen, not a Darleenie. So it's DARLEEN, Lyons@gmail.com. So I hope everybody's learned something. And now I'm going to stop sharing. And I will take any questions from chat. I don't see any. Did I do that good a job?
Oh,
Oh, I see one. Oh,
I'm
Yes,
just raising my hand. No, we have lots of questions. I just was
okay. So
being
if you want,
respectful and letting you finish as I was writing notes down.
okay, so there is a hand raise. There's a hand raise. Nicole, do you know where it is?
I'm doing it here, not to.
Because I can't, well, I can see everybody. I can see all 17 people. Okay, so
There it is.
who had, so raise your hands if you have questions. All right, I see Becky. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have tried to help out as parliamentarian just because I keep being asked to. And of course, most clubs, I mean, if you've got, we have 40 members, so we're very lucky. But if you have 7 members, I just can't see where a parliamentarian doesn't have voice and as a member of the club can't vote. So obviously, we've never said that our parliamentarian can't vote, especially if the parliamentarian is a committee chair also. And as a committee chair brings a motion to the floor. And so as we wear several hats, we kind of don't really follow these guidelines strictly.
I would suggest then that as the committee chair, you do not bring the motion to the floor, that you have another, a co-chair, another committee person bringing the motion to the floor, because you cannot vote and you don't have any discussion. And
No,
I know it's hard. I understand
it's
completely.
gonna happen, but okay, thank you.
But sorry, that's the rules. So, it's, everybody has to do what they can do the best. But you have to understand that there are certain guidelines and that we're supposed to be following them. And I know we don't always. But you don't want a chaotic meeting and you don't want one person ramrodding everything through everybody else.
And we don't
So-
have that. We have,
Okay.
we're pretty good at that, but they do give me voice and I have a voice at meetings.
Okay, I do too, and I sit on my hands and I want to say something, but I can't. So next, raise your hands. Bailey.
let me unmute. We don't have a parliamentarian.
You don't,
No,
you should.
I-
It's not,
I don't recall ever having a parliamentarian in the Zonta Club of Hilo.
it's one of the required or suggested things from ZI. And it's not impossible for something. I didn't know anything about it when I started this. Like I said, I just paid attention. And I've been, oh, there's my first page. I've been reading. Okay, so I told you 700 pages. Here it is. And you can see I have bookmarks, both top and bottom and side. I just started reading this. The club bought the Roberts Rules. And I also have the little abbreviated one. There we go. And I have them, I'll have lots of tabs in that. And you just have to start reading through it. And you got to pick somebody that you feel can be impartial and govern, not although your president governs, but to give you guidance on how to run a meeting so they're more effective and efficient and you don't have everybody going off willy-nilly saying whatever they want and doing whatever they want. And your club may not do that, but I know a lot of organizations do. So
I have other questions,
Sure.
but I'll wait.
Okay, but if you can find someone to be parliamentarian, it's not that difficult. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to do this.
Thank you. Do most clubs have parliamentarians? Do you know?
I don't know. And maybe we should have a raise of hands on, no? Am I getting no's from everybody?
Burbank doesn't.
Yeah,
Newport Harbor does.
Okay, so it seems like it's about half and half.
Thank you. I'll save my other questions after others speak. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Next, I have a hand raised. Lisa.
Sorry, was trying to unmute there.
Okay.
Thanks for this
presentation. Appreciate it, Darlene. It's helpful. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to understand from this presentation is you're making it sound to me like there's sort of a hierarchy on the board. So you have your president, and it's almost like a parliamentarian is kind of like the Secretary of State or something, like the right-hand person. And to Becky's point, it's like if you have a small club and yeah, you have someone that knows Robert's rules and is the parliamentarian, but also you need somebody that's maybe a board member, maybe they're the director on the board, then wouldn't the board members override the parliamentarian? I mean, I don't, it
Well,
sounds
remember,
like.
the parliamentarian doesn't have any vote, and your
Right.
parliamentarian should not be a board member or a director. I mean, a director or an officer. It should be somebody independent of the board. I'm not on the club board. I'm not an officer. And so I come into these meetings with a little ahead knowledge, not too much. I see the agenda ahead of time and I give our president some ideas, but otherwise I don't know what's coming up for discussion. And you just have to take your best guess at how to help the committees present their ideas and to give the president some guidance on how to handle any of these sticky situations that come up.
I
and
guess
I
I'm acting right now as along with Nicole and Beth Ann Ryan, we're kind of the bylaws chairs and
Yes.
or committee and for the district. And one thing we are finding out is that there are some clubs out there that don't even have bylaws. So I guess it's and so I'm not surprised that clubs wouldn't have parliamentarians or people that are kind of proficient. I just wonder how we can engage more clubs to, you know, really look at this more seriously and to, you know, really put bylaws in place. And I think it's a challenge, especially for small clubs or clubs that are kind of fighting right now just to stay alive because membership is low. So yeah, I think, you know, this is all really great information and certainly I learned a few things myself tonight. But it's challenging, you know, it's challenging for some of the smaller clubs, I think.
I agree. And for the clubs that do not have bylaws, I hope that you all know that Zonta International has a club bylaws template on their website. And all you have to do is download it and fill in the blanks. You know, they give you a choice on when are your meeting dates, how many officers you have, and a few other choices. It's not impossible to do. You just follow their bylaws and you pick your choices and they tell you where the choices are. And now you have a set of bylaws. But following them is easier said than done. So yes, you have bylaws, but do we all follow them? No. Even our club doesn't. And we also have standing rules and we follow them exactly. No, we don't. But it's up to the parliamentarian working with the president to make sure that the most efficient way of presenting these things are being handled. Oh, she's gone. Lisa, where'd you go?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Okay, I just lost you off my
No,
screen.
I appreciate all that. I do. And yeah, and one thing that the bylaws committee is trying to do is we're trying to at least push kind of that template out to the club presidents. So maybe they might take a look at it and
Yes.
create bylaws. So
Yeah,
we're
really
working on it,
easy.
but I just kind of wanted to bring that to light. I know that Melly and Beth Heiserman kind of went through this last biennium as well. So it's not anything new, but you know, hey, if Beth and Melly got a couple on board, maybe we can get a couple on board. Eventually we'll get there.
And if your Zonta club is incorporated, which I know a lot of them are, you have to have bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
They won't let you
Right.
incorporate without bylaws. So what are the clubs using? I don't know. But so the easiest way is the ZI template. and just
Right.
fill in the blanks, make your choices, and now it's done. But I want to say, once you do that, has to be approved, has to be presented to the club, and you have so many days ahead of time, you have to do it. There has to be so many members voting on it. Has to have a motion, a second, and approval. You just don't say, here they are. The club has to buy into them. And the same for any standing operating rules, standing rules, whatever you want to call them. Our club has both. And you just can't say, okay, here they are. This is what we're doing. No, 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 none of that works. You have to have all club buy-in, membership buy-in from all of that stuff. Okay, Beth.
I just wanted to share that I've been on a board where we had a parliamentarian as a board member. And then, of course, we had Darleen, who was not a board member. And it was very awkward having a board member as a parliamentarian versus not. And so I feel that I would recommend having someone who is not a board member. So I do want to share that with people to kind of suggest when you do look for a parliamentarian, not to have them as a board member. So when you are looking for one, to make sure that you have them not a board member.
Thank you, Beth. Anne, you're next.
Hi, I just have a comment. I was District 9 bylaws chair when Betty Loftusness was governor, if any of you
Oh,
remember that.
yes,
And we had the same problem then. There were clubs that didn't have at least very good bylaws, and there were clubs that had no standing rules, and we tried to help all the clubs get that taken care of. And it goes back a long time. That's all.
so we're still fighting the same battles, huh?
Exactly.
Yes. And telemed. Sorry, that's all I see. And you must be muted.
I am unmuted.
There you
now.
are.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Bach and I'm secretary of the Newport Harbor. What is my responsibility in writing down the president's restatement of the motion? It has to be accurate, correct?
Yes, and if whoever is making the motion writes it down in the first place, either on a piece of paper. Are you meeting in person or Zoom?
In person.
Okay, so make a form.
All
We have
right.
a simple little form that says I, and then has a bunch of blank lines. It says I move and a bunch of blank lines. And you write the motion out, and then it says the person signs it, whoever's making the motion, and there's a spot for the person to second the motion. And then they would give that to the president to read, so they can read it exactly as the person making the motion intended it to be presented.
Fantastic. Do you have that form, or we should just make up our own?
I have one I can send. I have some handouts that I'm going to send to those that want it, and I will add the motion form.
Fantastic.
No, yeah, I'll add it.
And I appreciate your discussion tonight. It was very well done. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. This is my first time ever. I've never done a PowerPoint, nothing ever like this. So
You did a great job.
thank you. Thank you. Gloria, I see you got your hand up.
I was taking notes and I just want to make sure you had said that a person can only speak on a motion once and they can speak again after every member has spoken.
Yes, that is correct.
So then does that mean that it can actually keep going to every member waiting her turn until everyone's spoken and go around like a round robin?
Kind of like a round robin.
Okay,
Yes.
but is
But-
there a point where someone can say, I
They
thought
can-
I heard that where you said that we could ask for the question and
Yes,
have a vote? Okay.
yes, yes. You don't want them to go on forever because we all know they will. And everybody has their opinion on a motion. and they're all going to voice their opinion 2 or 3 or 4 times. So at some point, either the president needs to say, okay, this is it, or somebody needs to say, I move for the previous question. And that sort of stops all the conversations, and then you vote on the previous question, which means you vote on the motion.
I guess we've been pretty lucky in our club because when we've had motions presented, the majority tend to say aye. And then we go on to the next thing and that's it. You know,
And I think probably most clubs are that way, but you get some people who don't, I have to be tactful here, who don't go
a
along.
difference of opinion.
Yeah, who has a difference of opinion of the motion, and they want to be heard no matter what. And they're going to keep talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking until they persuade everybody to vote in their favor. And it may not be what everybody wants. So that's where the previous question comes in handy from a committee member, not a committee member, a member of the club, which will kind of stop all of that repeated motions over and over, not motions, discussion over and over again, because we all know we get long-winded and we want to voice our opinion on something. Does that help? Okay. Melee?
Question on reports, committee reports. When committee reports come up in front of the club, are they just filed?
Yes.
The reason I ask is at one of our meetings, there was a lengthy report from the fundraising committee, all kinds of comments and everything. And they moved it to, they did a motion and it was approved by the club. And the committee, or the president basically said that they would take all of that and put it into the rules of procedure. And my feeling is you take the report, it goes to file, but those things that the committee wanted to change in the operating procedure should have been by individual motions.
Sounds like to me that's a committee problem and not a club problem.
It's a club problem.
Okay. Well, it should be a committee problem. Then if the committee is recommending, and let's say it's a fundraising committee, that they do XYZ next year instead of SRTW that they did this year, then that's a committee decision, and the committee should report to the club that they have some changes they want to make, and they'll be presenting it to the committee. It's not for I don't think it's for the club to say to the committees, you need to run your committee this way, and you have to do this, this, and this, and this. It should be up to each committee, especially the fundraising committee, to determine how they want to proceed with their events. And if there's something that needs to have club approval, such as your budget for the committee or anything, what else there could be, mainly budgets, but all that is committee work, not business meeting and not board meeting work. It should all be done in the committee.
But the bylaws require certain things that are to be voted on by the membership. And one of them is the budget and the other is projects or programs.
Yes, yes. So all budgets for your fundraisers and the club or your foundation, if you have one, needs to come before all of your members to be voted on. Even though it comes from the committee, say I'm in charge of the sock hop committee. And so my committee's put together this budget. They have to present it to your board first, and then your business meeting, at your business meeting to your other members afterwards for approval. It's just not up to the sock hop committee to say, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
They need approval from the club to do that. Now, beyond that, on who's going to co-chair the refreshments or who's going to do this or who's going to go get
That's the committee.
That's all committee work, and that should not
Correct.
be brought up during the business meetings at all, because it doesn't have any place for it. only during the committees, but if you have a budget, what else did you mention besides budget?
A budget, and I think it's programs or projects are approved by
Right. And
membership.
programs and projects should be approved by your membership because they should all have buy-in. And those should come from the committee chairs who present their projects or their programs at a business meeting and say, this is what we'd like to do. And they make a motion then at that time, that committee chair makes a motion that says, I move that we approve these projects or these programs. It does not need a second because it came from the committee. And then the president and you write it out, like I said, the president repeats it and everybody votes on it. That way you have buy-in from the entire club. Well, the entire club that's at your business meeting. And so projects, anything like that that involves your entire club needs to be approved. But who's going to chair what subcommittee of another committee? No.
I agree. The point was, when the club approved the report, the president did say that all the changes would be put into the rules of procedure. And so you really didn't know what was going into the rules of procedure because it was a full page of all kinds of things.
Sorry, go on.
So the concern was the report should be filed and the committee should make the motions of changes to the ROPs.
Okay, so I would question then, okay, so what, yes, the committee should make the decision on what happens within the committee. So my other comment would be, why are the committee decisions in your ROPs? That should be up to the committee. The ROPs should be more overarching instead of specific to a committee.
They aren't, and I think perhaps it goes into too much detail. But thank you, you did.
And they can get into too much detail and they should not. It should be, so leave the committees up to do what they want to do with the approval of the board and the club membership.
Right.
And don't put it in your ROPs because now you're stuck with it, whether you like it or not. And the next committee may say, well, I don't want to do that. Well, then they're bound to it if it's in your ROPs.
I agree. Thank you very much. And one more question. What is a negative motion?
I move that we do not participate in this XYZ event.
Thank you.
Okay, you cannot say I do not move. You can say I move. And if everybody during this discussion says, well, I don't want to do that, then it comes up to a vote and the president says all in favor, say aye, there's silence. All in favor, no, and everybody raises their hand.
I see. Thank you.
You never make a negative motion. It's always positive, but you can always vote it down.
Thank you very much. I'm just sorry that nobody else in my club, I've sent it out. No one else participated in this.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Telemet, I'm sorry.
My name, no, that's okay. That's part of my career. Anyway,
Okay.
my name is Bonnie Bach, Secretary of Newport Harbor.
Oh, Bonnie, okay.
That's okay, don't worry. We have had members at the board bring up purchases such as, we need a new dishwasher, we need a new light fixture. If the board decides that, then does that have to go to the general membership?
This is a committee that wants to buy something?
No, this is at the board meeting, and one of the members said, we need a new dishwasher for the club. Okay.
So, okay, so you have your own clubhouse and you need a dishwasher.
Right, or
Okay.
other purchases.
Or something. So
the-
yes,
The board
And-
approves that, and then does that need to go to the general membership also?
yes, it does.
Thank you.
Because the club does not make decisions for the board. I mean, the board does not make decisions for the club.
Thank you very much.
Board is only there for guidance and advice. The club is the decision-making body of your Zonta club.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Do we have any in chat that I need to look at?
There are no other questions in the chat.
No other? Okay, I can't even view them. So, but thank you, Nicole. Okay. Anybody else? Any off the ball questions? Any comments? Any, like I said, I'll.
Darlene,
Sure.
you were very brave to do this.
When,
Yes,
when,
it's
when
a
Debbie
tough
first asked me,
situation.
when Debbie first asked me, I thought, no, I'm not going to do this. And
No, it's much needed, and like everyone said, I wish more people could attend. And we'll
yes,
try to take what we do back. But
right,
I think everybody realizes that we are all volunteers. We are all trying to do our best. We don't throw guilt around at people who aren't following every letter of every, I mean, I've been in Zonta for 40 years now, and there are things that I just go, well, I don't think we've ever done that, you know, though, but we haven't done things wrong. It's just that we haven't, well, obviously we have, but we haven't done them intentionally. We just are trying to be a kinder, gentler club and not step on toes and not, you know, and make everyone feel inclusive. And I think there's a way to do that and still stick to the rules and not feel like I said, I think that I will probably be resigning as parliamentarian now because I've always had a voice and I've always had a vote. So if I can't have a voice or a vote, I'm not going to be parliamentarian.
it is hard.
We've never enforced that in our club.
Yeah, it's hard to do. And when I first became parliamentarian, I thought, oh yeah, I can do that. I go, wait a minute, I can't say anything. And I find myself going, and I'm making all these faces, or I turn my camera off because I don't want anyone to see me. And it's hard to do. It really,
we also realize that when you have so many of our clubs that are between 9 and 15 members or 9 and 12
Yes.
members, that, like I'd said earlier, where everyone's wearing different hats, so many
Yes.
hats, that we can't exclude them from
Right.
participating in some of the
You're right.
conversation.
you just need to remember the golden rules. You got to be impartial. So if you're making a report on something, or you're presenting a motion, which you can't do anyway, you can't be impartial. So you need to get somebody else to do it for you and just kind of sit on your hands and grimace and do as much as you can without voicing your opinion. And I agree, it's hard to do. I have another question. Nope. Tell him, Ed. Sorry, no, she's,
Nope.
nope, okay. And there's no questions in chat?
No, you've answered the questions in the chat.
Okay. Anybody else? Last chance. So we will put this on our YouTube.
I think Governor Debbie